we have to create the right vibe, the energy, and everybody at the organization has to feel so privileged to be here. It's no other way.
Thanks for listening to the Purely Arsenal podcast. Please follow us on Twitter at PurelyArsenalFP for all the latest Arsenal podcasts. Welcome to another episode of a Purely Arsenal podcast. It is Sunday evening for me after a 1-0 loss to Manchester City at home, and we're going to review that and the Benfica draw in the first leg away at Olympiacos. It was in Rome, wasn't it? The second leg's in Olympiacos, that's of course. And I've got the man of the podcast at the moment, James Johnstone, with me. How you doing, James?
Yes, I'm good. No, it's it's always hard to come on after a defeat, but it had to be done. So
we've not made a habit of it, have we? I think this. No,
I know.
We all knew it was happening. Which is, we'll get into whether that should be the feeling or not. So this one, I think we were all accustomed to that. Yeah, we'll be on, because I already come to terms with it.
I just wanted to say as well, it got flagged up last week that me and you made the mistake of saying Willian come on, and we conceded the 2 goals. We were already conceded 1 by the time. Yeah, so I apologise for that. We pride ourselves on that we're very precise and get things correct.
It's good when the listeners are listening, because I'm like, I'll pick up on one thing and I'll be like, they got that wrong. And do you know what? It sticks with you, doesn't it? It doesn't matter if the other hour podcast you were in depth and it does stick with you, and you want to comment. So
no, I know you you're going to touch on it later, but obviously there's stuff about the abuse that players get and the agendas that people have against certain players, and I didn't want people to think that we were trying to agenda-size, if that's a word, or put the agenda on Willian to the extent that we blamed him for 2 goals going in.
And I don't think we were saying we did. It's moving off topic, but we'll get back to it. But he didn't feature at all, really.
Also just killing the momentum when he come on. That was what we were trying to convey, but we just did it in a bad way.
Well, in this game, we never really got a chance to get any momentum. So, because if we're going to lose it, what we've realised is kick it in early, and then after that, everything's a bonus. But Jack, let's talk about it, because we talked for days leading up to these 3 games about lineups and rotation, and I think Arteta's quite clever with rotation generally so far in his Arsenal career. I think he's been really, really poor overall in his Arsenal tenure with the way he uses his substitutions. But in terms of actually rotating and being sensible, using players, and when they've had an injury, keeping them out for a few extra, I think overall he's been about as sensible as you can be. So talk to me about the City lineup. We made 5 changes, but also I think you've got to touch on the fact that we were unchanged for Benfica, which I think was a surprise to everyone.
So for me, touching on Benfica first and foremost, just quickly, I wasn't as shocked as most, because I looked at it and was like, well, he's clearly rewarding those players that, albeit okay, I think the Leeds keeper did help us a lot on the day, but they blew Leeds out of the water quite early. And I think where in the Europa you've got the 5 subs instead of the 3, he probably looked at it and was like, right, let's see if this lot can blow these, because Benfica are on a terrible run of form from everything that I read. Obviously Portuguese football isn't on very much over here. If not, it's not on at all. So I don't know to the extent the full Benfica
in the league, their manager's been under question.
They've gone out of all the cups or whatever, apart from the Europa League and everything else. So I thought, he's probably done it again to go, right, I'm going to blow all these out. I'm going to try and get 2 or 3 goals early again, and then I can make my subs with this game potentially, possibly in mind. And obviously we just had a poor day at the office with the finishing. People were completely criticising the performance, like, oh no, it was rubbish, it was terrible. And for me, I was like, it wasn't necessarily the performance, it was the finishing from Aubameyang. That was, I didn't think it was that bad. I mean, to me, they offered no real threat. I think I mentioned it a couple of podcasts back when you were asking me about it. I was like, all you got to do is stop this Peasy guy, because for me they've got nothing else other than this guy. But he's a tricky type of player, and he scored them the penalty. But other than that, I didn't think he created much. I didn't think they created much either, to be fair. And yeah, like I said, I think we just were like, let's try and blow them out, and then we can make the changes with this game in mind. And then going into this game, I said to you, I think he's going to rotate it, but I thought there was going to be more than what he actually did. So, yeah, there was no, when I looked at the team, I was like, well, I'm not expecting much anyway. And that's not, I know there's this whole, oh yeah, well, you thinking you're not going to win is accepting mediocrity. And I'm like, well, I'm sort of with that to an extent of how the goalposts keep moving for what is the expectation for Arsenal Football Club and what is the expectation for this manager. Because for me, this manager's getting a lot more leeway than I believe anyone else would if he were in the job. Plus
Arsene Wenger, yeah.
Well, and if fans were there as well, because for me, there's two glaring differences between obviously himself and Unai Emery in the fact that Arteta won his final and Unai Emery lost his, and he lost his to a terrible extent. I was calling him to be sacked after that final, and for me, it's just like, well, that final when he lost, it was him, it wasn't the players. But seemingly every time Mikel Arteta loses, it's the players. And I'm like, but he's got better ones than what was there before. Plus, they're the same. So why is it that it was there? It's their fault now. But under Unai Emery, no, it was Unai Emery's fault. And I'm not sticking up for him, because we all know. If you want to go back and listen to the archives of when Unai Emery was in charge, we were all telling him to get out. We all had enough. I'm not saying that I'm unhappy that he isn't here anymore. It's just the narrative for this manager currently is ridiculous, because it's gone from, oh no, he needs a top four, James. He needs a top four. Now it's, top six. Oh, top 10. At one stage it was don't get relegated.
Well, that was me. That was mostly our podcast, wasn't it?
Arsenal Football Club, don't get relegated. No, I'm not having that. I'm sorry, I'm not having that.
Where do you think, just to go, I agree with you. I do the comparisons to Emery, and I think I've got criticism a lot recently. It's like, you must want Arteta out with the way you're commenting on things and stuff like that. And it's not really that. What I'm looking at is, like you said, I'm comparing the two situations because they're the most recent situations. And also, I think this lineup sort of plays into the fact that, of course, it kind of throws back to your mind when Emery decided he was going to focus on the Europa League, right? And he dropped players for home games against Palace and Brighton, was it? And we lost both of those games. And
and then on that run where it was like all the animal teams beat us, so it was like the Eagles, the Foxes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there you go. And we were like, okay, you've completely balls it up here, because we literally were nailed on for top four, and winning just one of those games would have got us top four.
Yeah, exactly.
But we were all especially on this podcast, we're saying, if you go and win the Europa League, though, we will forgive every bit of you. But if you don't, that's it, mate. There's no justifying it. But the weird thing for this two games, James, is if you look at it just on the format, on the play, in terms of the personnel, you would say we're already prioritising the Europa League. Is that wise to do? When we're hitting the first knockout stage? I mean, in fairness to Unai Emery, he prioritised the Europa League when we were in second leg of the semi-final, somewhere around there. There's a lot of good teams left in the Europa League. One bad performance and you are out. I just think it's, even though I don't really think there's a lot left in this league season like you don't, I find that a bit early even to be doing that. Is that what we're doing, or is it just the fact that the games came in the situation, the context they did?
I think it's a bit of both. For me, it's not really one or the other. I think obviously the rate that the games are being played at with the world situation, because they're like, look, the fixtures have got to be done quicker because they still want a Euros. And there's that rumour at the moment about how apparently our government's going to offer, I know you're out there, but the government here are saying that they'll stage the whole Euros like in '96 and have everyone, because they reckon that by that July/August time, we're going to be all hunky-dory and everything else like that. And I'm like, well, I'd love to know what you're basing that off, and I'll probably find that out later on tonight when the briefing's over. But the games are coming thick and fast. So I think some of it's chopped and changed because of that, obviously, to keep, the old dreaded red zone, as they like to call it. And I mean, we've had players go out, haven't we? I mean, Tierney come back yesterday, still got Party, who offers so much to this team. You saw it yesterday, what not having someone like him in there does, with the 2 centre mids that we did play. And then added to that as well, I think you have to prioritise it because you're 10th.
You're already out of the league, yeah.
You're in 10th place, do you know what I mean? When the other teams around you do drop, we don't capitalise. We've been like that for ages now. I'm not trying to get overly carried away, but if you look at it and go, okay, well, I've seen Chelsea draw 1-1. Obviously, them lot down the road have just lost, and I'm like, well, let's see if we can get something out of it. And like you said, it was a whimper yesterday, wasn't it? It was an absolute whimper.
My frustration with the sort of progress rule against the best side in the league, which they clearly are, and they're going to walk the league, I think, this season. I think that's pretty clear. It's not the defeat; it's the manner of the defeat, and that's my issue. And I think both games, home and away, are correlated. Both early goals, and I think it's really hard to evaluate the opposing team once they get an early goal because there is absolutely no need for them to push on. And what City have shown this season, if anything, is that they actually don't feel the need to push on and win 3-4, 5-0 in every game. They're much more sensible. They know not to give away silly chances, right? So we knew what we were playing into. So at that point of that, and we'll get to the goal of conceding that goal, the onus is completely on the team to bring the game to the other team, right? And I look at it and I look at City's results, and of course they're on a fantastic run of form and they're a fantastic side. But Leeds had 12 shots on goal against them, 7 on target at home. They should have beaten them. West Ham got a point at home against them. Tottenham beat them, even though they were battered, to be fair, but they did beat them 2-0. For some reason, though, when you enter this game, someone said, tweeted, I think it was Tim Stillman, said, it's the most boring sort of fixture list in our lineup. And I think the reason he's saying that is because it's just so obvious what's going to happen. And I take a 6-3 like Arsene Wenger used to go and get back in the day at City. I know he had some worse results at other clubs, but in terms of that sort of expansive play and the will to just create and keep trying to create no matter what you give away going back behind you. But I also think context is really important. You just said it. We're 10th. It's literally the league is win or bust. If you don't win, you may as well lose because a point isn't getting you anywhere. It's not getting us anywhere, right? Yeah. It's not getting us in. We are 10th. In order for us to get anywhere near what the objective was from Arteta and Edu when they sat down at the start of the season, which would have been top 6, they have to win, they have to win probably 10 out of the last 15 games minimum, right? So, and I think I'm being kind. So, I mean, so in this game, and albeit this game could be an exception, at 1-0 down, surely you have to go, we are going to go for it. Because if we lose 2 or 3, we have the confidence. This team isn't so fragile that they're going to break down like biscuits, collapsing because they lost to the best team in the league 3-0 rather than 1-0, right? They can all cope with that. Let's go and give them a bit more of a game.
Look after the final whistle.
Smiling, happy. They don't. Well, we know they don't care as much as we do. We know that for a while, haven't we? But
I'm like clearly you expected you were not going to win by how you're at. I'm not saying fight them and be pissed off about it, but if you're going to do all that stuff, do it in the tunnel. Do it.
Yeah, of course.
I don't want to see it. Do you know what I mean? Because then it just clearly indicates like you don't. Like,
if fans were in the crowd, it wouldn't be happening.
Yeah, but I'm like, I already perceive you don't give a shit. and now you're showing me you don't give a shit as well. So part of me's like, I know I shouldn't be really angry because I'm expecting it, but at the same time, I don't want to see it. Do you know what I mean? I'm with Roy Keane on that. I'm like, do that shit somewhere else. Like, don't.
Yeah, that wasn't one of the non-negotiables.
The camera. Yeah.
But I also
on the camera, it's so annoying.
I also think, I think City made 5 changes as well, right? And in fairness, of course, they can make 10 changes and still be strong. So I'm not being silly and saying I am not upset that we lost. I thought we were going to lose anyway. It's the manner of the defeat. We had one shot on target, which was Kieran Tierney, a speculative effort in the first half. Okay, you can say we came back into the game a little bit, but it couldn't have got much worse than those first 10, 15 minutes, could it? So the last thing I want to ask you before we actually get into the game is I think the overplaying, generally speaking, of rotation at this time, I think we overplay it a little bit. And the reason I say that is we're in the Europa League, and I think people seem to forget that when you play in a group stage of the Europa League, you have the ability to rotate your team more than any other Champions League team in their Champions League group stages, right? Because they can't do it, other than maybe City, of course. And I know we were playing City today. Okay, get it. But we literally would play a completely different 11 in the Europa League games, I think, bar 1 or 2, right? So we had 6 weeks there where we were rotating more than anyone else above us anyway. So I think that gets forgotten. Okay, now we're in a zone where we can't do it because we're in knockout stages. But this is, we're talking the whole season leading through here. And I also think, other than Partey's injury, Tierney in the recent weeks, sure, I think we've been relatively lucky with injuries, I think. In comparison, you look at Liverpool, in fairness, and you look at other sides.
It's more of the classic injury that's been at Arsenal for quite a while, and that's bruised egos, mate. That's the one that's
yes,
hurting us the most. Is the bruised egos.
yes, yeah, exactly, yeah, absolutely. But so let's talk about the game. We started terribly again, a bit like the Villa game, but Villa game we actually weren't so terrible for the first 15 minutes. We just conceded a goal. First goal, James, I thought it was just terrible defending from the minute it got out to the right to the minute it came into the box. It's shocking to give a player that's that, just that high, a free space like that to get a header on the ball. It is pretty schoolboy defending, isn't it?
Yeah. All week I've said, look, just don't get embarrassed. Like, my whole thing was just don't get embarrassed. And I think people took that as in, oh, you don't want to lose by like the 3s or the 4s or whatever. But we were embarrassed 2 minutes in. I'm like, I know obviously the scoreline didn't reflect embarrassment, but I'm like, it's a brilliant. So first and foremost, I'll say it's a brilliant crossfield ball from, I think it was Ruben Diaz that pinged it to Mahrez, I think.
I can't even remember that ball. Who played it? I remember Mahrez. As soon as Mahrez got the ball,
I'm like, it's a proper splitter of a pass. So I'm like, straight away, I'm like,
and he's a proper player, isn't he?
Yeah. Oh my God, yeah. But deserved man of the match. I'm like, he's been levels for them. I've always rated Johnstone's. I know a lot of people haven't.
Oh, you were right on him. Absolutely.
Yeah, he's raised Johnstone's back to the level that I always thought he was anyway.
Yeah, done Joe Gomez and he kind of thing at Liverpool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's proper sorted them out big time. It was a great signing. It's been arguably one of the signings of the season, if not the signing of the season. So obviously he's pinged it. It lands at Mahrez. Tierney, for all I praise him and everything, he's done all ends up there. There's no. I always say you've got to stop it at source if you can. You got to. Again, he just keeps dropping off. Saka, who was switched to the left, which I understood, because I'm like, okay, that's tactical from the point of view of that he wants to eliminate that overload, because he knows that Mahrez is going to go for Tierney all game. So he wants that additional better defender on that side than Pepe, because Pepe wouldn't, and also with Cancelo that pushes up as well, he's like, yeah, if I can get Tierney in behind on an overlap with Saka, he can feed him and then that can get that cross in, which, again, don't know why we pump all these crosses in when I think you said it the other week, him and Lacazette, since they've been at the club together, combined got 5, and now it's 6 because of that diving header against Leeds.
Yeah, which, let's face it hit him in the head rather than him headering it. But
Yeah, exactly. But Saka is jogging back. I know, obviously, best player offensively, everything else that we've had recently, and I'm not digging him out, but if you watch it, he's jogging. He makes no real attempt to get back in there and help Tierney potentially stop that at source. And then the cross comes in, and Sky went completely on Rob Holding. It was Rob Holding. For me, it's him and Bellerin. I think Bellerin doesn't shout.
Comes off Bellerin.
And Bellerin's
just
too
lets him
slow
go
to react. Bellerin's not picking him up. And there's no shout for Holding and everything else. And like you said, 5'7", if that.
How many headers he got?
Space.
I want to know how many headers he's got. I'll look that up in a second. How many headers Sterling got?
I think it's 2. I think Sky said that's his second ever headed goal. Yeah.
Other one was against us, I'm sure.
Yeah. But I keep saying it was 64%, then it becomes 65%. It's now at 66%. We concede first. 66%. We let the goal in the first time. And we're a team that when it's 0-0, we're struggling to break people down. We're struggling. Like, we can't break anybody down. But now we're playing catch up. It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. And, literally all of us in our group chat went, game over.
I mean, the only time we've come back this season, maybe there was one other time, but it was Southampton away, which was quite recent. But it was an instant reply, which is different, which is where we've done okay, kind of like we did at Benfica. If we have the instant reply, we send a settle a little bit. But against City, you're just not getting that because you're not going to create chances, or we're certainly not. But I agree with you on that. And the thing with Rob Holding is, and I'll get into Bellerin a little bit more because I don't want people believing this again. We're singling out players because Bellerin's coming for a lot of there's two sides, isn't there? He's a very divisive player, isn't he, Bellerin? Let's put it that way. He's sort of getting across from the sort of the new Ozil, I'm calling him, because it seems like there's a big division in the fan base. But we're gonna get to that. But in fairness to Rob Holding, who I thought was actually very good after that moment.
Yeah, he was.
To be honest.
He was.
In fact, but on the other hand, in his last 4 or 5 appearances, he has made big errors leading to goals. And let's be honest, these are the kind of things that Mustafi would be ruined for. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And I think Rob Holding, I think if people listen to this podcast, we've been very complimentary of Rob Holding. We were for the new contract. I still am for it, but I've always been of the belief that he's one of 4 centre backs. Yes, and not necessarily, certainly not in the future, one of our first 2 starters. But I mean, there's 2 kind of similar instances there: the Ollie Watkins one and the Sterling's one, where he's just not really aware of who's around him. I agree with you on Bellerin. I think he does that too many times defensively. He just lets the player go. Leeds' second goal was telling point, wasn't it? He just let him go, right? And by the time he realises, it's too late. And the thing with Hector Bellerin is, and here I go again, but the thing with Hector Bellerin is he always used to get himself out of those defensive problems because of his elite speed, and he doesn't have elite speed anymore. I don't even think he has average speed anymore, to be honest. I think he's very, very slow for a fullback now, which is, I can't recall a deterioration in speed in that age bracket ever, to be honest. No matter what the injury, cannot.
And you're the expert on it, but all I ever see is it's that injury, it's the injury, and I'm like,
not related.
I'm like, I've got a guy who, when we on podcast with, and you told me they come back stronger normally.
Yeah, it's not related, James. I'll tell you what, I was going through this with someone the other day. Let's go through some of the ACL tears. Right, Pires, I would say Pires was better before it. Pace-wise, he came back to the level he was at. Didn't last long, but he did come back to the level he was at. I think he did it 2002, didn't he? Yeah. He was absolutely fantastic 2004, wasn't he?
When we won the league, they all bowed to him, didn't they? When he still had the thing on his leg. Yeah, I remember
exactly.
that,
Yeah, exactly. It was against Newcastle, I think, when he landed off the pitch. Yeah, that's
was
it.
it.
Yeah.
On Rivera as well.
It might have been, yeah. I think it was an awkward land, but I can't remember. Walcott may not have come back the same player, if you want to say that, but speed-wise, returned very quickly. Kurt Zuma's another one. Took a while. Speed-wise, came back very quickly. So actually, the only other instance that kind of crops up in my mind is Michael Owen. But Michael Owen had, like, literally torn his hamstring off of his pelvis, and that was more of a mental thing with him. He always felt his hamstring was going to go. Now with Bellerin, it's very, 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 very unlikely to be injury related, because literally when they come back from that injury, they literally cross and check every single thing to make sure they are back to where they need to be. It just chucked out to me, when did he come back? 12, 18 months ago. First 2 games I saw him back, that what we're seeing here is a player that is no longer, in my eyes, no longer dedicated himself across the board to the game. That's what I believe, and I think you can see that physically. I think he was never. I'm not saying he was ever Lukaku or anything, but he was. Physically he was. I mean, the guy was becoming like a beast towards before his injury, to be honest. Even though there was some deterioration in his performance before the injury, but in terms of his physicality, and he was becoming very strong player, and he was. To be honest, it's just that he can't get himself out of trouble anymore. So I agree with you. I think he was massively at fault there, and a lot of people will miss that. I don't think a lot of people will call that as him being at fault there, but he just lets him slide off him. And in fairness to Holding and Mari, that they're not going to know he's there unless you call him, and there's not a call. Yeah. You can watch it.
I mean, over here on Sky, it was Neville and Tyler, and they just both were hammering Rob Holding for it. And I was just like, well, Gary, hang on a sec, that's your position, like where Bellerin what? But they didn't really he didn't make any comment really on it at all. And I'm like, I've never, even at the level I played at, I never played at right back, but I know if my right back did that, I'd be turning to him and going, well, what were you doing?
Yeah.
It was a bit like what I said, with the Villa podcast, in that obviously Cedric's made the mistake. He's called the 999. And nobody turned up to help. Nobody turned up to,
And it was, like I said, we do praise Tip. It was really passive from Tierney. Yeah, you cannot jockey like that. And if you're going to jockey like that, you better make sure you stop the cross. And he doesn't do anything, Mahrez. He's a fantastic player, but he's the most one left-footed player other than Pepe on the pitch. Yeah. And you know exactly. I could watch that 10 times before I'd ever seen it, and I know exactly what he's going to do. He's going to cut onto his left and whip it in. So, but Tierney doesn't even attempt to block it. He's about 5 yards away from him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying clatter the guy or be rash closer, silly, but you've got to engage at least. Yeah, you've got to engage at least, because it's like we keep saying, the space that we vacate. I'd love Lacazette, Aubameyang, Martinelli, Pepe, Saka, whoever to have space like that. But these teams don't give it. It's only us that gives these. They're basically freebies.
Yeah.
Like I said, we can't keep playing catch up and all that, but we're giving teams head starts, Jack. We're like, there you go, have that.
Yeah.
He probably couldn't believe that he could get up and score a header like that with such ease.
Oh no, he was loving it, wasn't it?
And then ridiculous.
After that, it's an uphill battle, but it's on the side that is.
Well, they were just shell shocked. Jack,
for about 15 minutes.
Rob Holding come back afterwards, but initially he was shaky and all of it. They were just a mess. They were an absolute mess. We had a good spell for 10 minutes before the end of that first half, where Tierney's getting loads of joy. But then as soon as the second half started, they saw that, negated it right away, and we were back to square one again with nothing, absolutely nothing.
I do find the centre-back total rotation a little bit strange, even though I know Holding and Mari have done well, but Mari hasn't played for 6 weeks or so.
Yeah.
It is odd to me to pick this as the game when you know who he's coming up against. As the game, here you go, mate, bed yourself back in. I mean, it was odd, you would have picked Leeds, you would have even picked Benfica where you've got another leg, or I found that odd for a player that had been not playing first team football for about 6 weeks to bring him back in. And especially when next to him, he's got another player that has in Tierney that hasn't been playing for about 4 weeks. I found, I know the rotation, yeah, sure, make your rotation, but I think he really put himself in no man's land once he decided to stick with the same team against Benfica, which I'm not saying was wrong. Let's be honest, we should have won 2 or 3 against Benfica, and we would have all said it was the right decision if we did. But once you do that, you then probably have to rotate and against City. And I think maybe I found that quite surprising in the back four to just have 2 players that hadn't played for weeks sitting next to each other against the best team in the league. I was like, I'm not sure how this one's going to go. And then just to touch on your point of switching Saka and Pepe, the only issue I have with that is I think it plays into the mentality of the type of coach we have. So what I mean by that is, I think when we went away to City, what did we do? We played Willian in false 9. Would he have done that against anyone else? I don't think so, right? So what that strikes me as is him being, I find it really odd when someone is so defensively concerned that they adjust their attacking players, where their attacking players are meant to hurt the opposition, right? So if you go, do you know what, this is a 3 at the back game, I'm more okay with that. But if you go, even though Saka's been absolutely unstoppable on the right and Pepe actually has been pretty much the same on the left, I'm going to switch them to help us defensively. I always look at that and go, you're literally negating the one area we can hurt them in. And I think that is such a defensive-minded thought process. And Unai Emery would have done the same sort of thing. And I hate, you remember we used to do the old diamond midfield with Guendouzi on the right and Torreira on the left and all this sort of stuff. And it bugs me. I understand your point. I know they're going to hurt us down the right side. Saka's obviously... But in fairness to Pepe, when he's played on the left, and I even thought in this game he had no feed whatsoever, but his effort was there. His ball recoveries have been fantastic.
But that was the thing, mate. After the goal went in, and, you know, like we said, obviously, we had that spell in the second half. I'd have just switched it, just to give it, just second half, and make the left back go, oh, I've got Saka now this way. Oh, okay, well, I might have to be a bit more careful. And, do you know what I mean? Like, swap them over and make them think about it. Do you know what I mean? Like, give them that extra dilemma or whatever. But the change didn't come till way later in the game, and that's the other thing. That's the other thing that we keep saying is the substitutions. For me, the personnel's always wrong, and the timing's wrong. And I mean, yesterday, the Danny Ceballos one.
What's the point?
I'm just like,
at that time.
Exactly. I'm like, El Neni should have come off here 20, 30 minutes ago.
Or Xhaka, if you want to give him a break, because that's what you're doing, isn't it?
You know, you can't play them 2 players together. We've all come back and gone, well, El Neni, when he come back in, look how good he is and everything else like that. But we know what he's going to do. We know what he is. But it's when he was playing against Liverpool, and then when we played against Man United, it was just a case of, look, mate, your job is to stay in there, shore it up, and give the ball to people that can do something. And there were times yesterday, because I saw Odegaard get absolute pelters, mate, on Twitter, and I watched a podcast last night, and it had the chat up, and he was getting slandered in the chat. Oh, how
Alex Scott and stuff like that as well, wasn't it?
Well, and I'm like, they never gave him the ball. There was a time in the first half where Bellerin is obviously, dribbling forward and everything else, and I'm not trying to dig out Bellerin. I'm really not. And it's literally like you've got a 5-yard pass to Odegaard, who's in space there and can turn and potentially bring one of that front 3 in. And he just still tries to beat him down that side. And it's like you said about Aubameyang and everything else. And again, I'm really not sure. But I'm like, you're weak as piss, Bellerin. You ain't ever going to get past it. You ain't going to break.
Aubameyang as well.
And so it's just constantly like trying to sprint past Fernandinho, and I'm like, you're never going to get through with this. You're never going to get through there. I'm like, Pepe and Odegaard yesterday had so much space, and it's just, they're never gonna. And again, it's what you alluded to. I think it was a couple of months ago. In that for 4 or 5 seasons now, this team's run through granite. Xhaka has it. It was back when Party first was started, and all of us were like, bloody hell, they all just keep passing the Xhaka all the time. And I'm like, yeah, because they're ingrained that it just goes through that guy. And it was the same yesterday. I'm like, I thought Odegaard had a good game. I wouldn't say he was amazing, but he could have had an amazing.
It wasn't the biggest.
He could have had an amazing. Yeah, he could have had an amazing game if they. Do you know what I mean? If they utilised him, because he's obviously different to Smith Rowe in the fact that he's a carrier, and he's got a wider variety of passes that we've only seen him a little bit, but I think he's got a bit more in his locker pass variety wise than Smith Rowe. But Smith Rowe's got the energy, and he's a one touch. Smith Rowe's the give and go.
Off the ball, his movements
exactly.
there,
yeah. And just him and Pepe, just nothing. And I mean, I think you guys had Lee Dixon commentating, and when Pepe got subbed, I saw that he went, "Oh, is he coming on or is he coming off?"
I didn't hear that. I probably muted it by that point.
Right, yeah. Because I was like, "Oh, that's a bit of a dig from Lee," and I can understand it because he gets judged a lot on effort. Pepe, he gets judged a lot on effort, and obviously he had that scuffed shot, and he had a few where he's trying and he gets tackled and everything else. So it looks on the eye that he's had a crap game and he's had a lazy game, but like I said, there's times where him and Odegaard have got acres of space to go. The ball just never comes. It just never comes.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, they were feeding off very little, and that's the same goes for Aubameyang. But I think the frustration with this game is, again, if you're going to rotate, it seems very odd to me that you don't start Lacazette when you know you're going to have very, very little of the ball, and you probably need someone to just be able to hold it up for you. And I think Aubameyang in these types of games where you're going to have very, very little of the ball, a bit like when he came on against Wolves when we were down to 10 men, I don't really see the point in having him on the pitch. You're basically just saying, if we get one chance, let's hope it falls to you, and hopefully you put it away because you still are our best converter of chances. But I think I'd rather have someone that is going to push their backside into defenders, try to bring other players in if we do push it up. Because for some reason, in the first half, the biggest frustration for me was the amount of times we got Saka literally in the hole. Right, it was almost like Saka was playing attacking mid sometimes because we were literally feeding him more than Odegaard. But every time Saka got the ball, we'd go out wide to Tierney, and I was just so upset because I was like, just play it to Aubameyang's feet because that's when he wants it. That's it. But we'd play it out wide to Tierney, and for all the good that Tierney is, he does a lot of playing the ball into an area rather than realising that we have no one that is actually in the area. Right, so you always go, that's a good cross from Tierney. It never rarely ever meets anyone because we have no one that can win the ball in the air, and our 6'2" striker looks like a midget in the flipping in the middle of a pitch, right? I don't know, that's an appropriate word. A small person. So,
but at the same time as well, he can't even hold it up.
Yes,
so it's not like he chests it down and then lays people in, is it? It's either he's going to fluff the header or it's going to go over his head in the first place.
Yeah, and I don't love his body language in these games. It always seems to me like he feels like we're not going to get anywhere in these games. So he's kind of like, he's very, very blasé about it.
Look at what happened afterwards as well. I mean, this again, and it's Neil's point. Neil's been hammering it. I think ever since he got appointed the captain in the first place. He scores a hat-trick versus Leeds, and he's out there, match ball under his arm, wants to chat, wants to keep talking, chat. Obviously, loved what he said, especially with the stuff about his mother and everything else. Got no qualms about that whatsoever. However, we lose a game, wheel out Saka, wheel out Tierney. He don't want to face it.
He spoke about this, didn't he? And he said... in one of his
You're
interviews earlier
you're
this
captain.
season.
You got to face it.
Yeah, of course you have. And he said, he doesn't like to speak after when he played bad or we've lost or something like that. And I was like, I'm sorry.
Shit, it happens. You're the captain.
You're the captain. You've got to do that. So that is frustrating. I agree, and that is. And I mean, I felt it was odd to start him again. I think the reason he started again was probably because of the amount of misses he had against Benfica, and Arteta was like, well, we've got to get him back onto
playing him into confidence again.
Playing him confidence, but it doesn't feel like we're quite hit. We always feel like we're getting near it, but then we felt like this after Southampton when he scored, and then he had an injury and missed, had a few bad games again, and he's never really. His season has not got going for lots of off the field reasons, but also on the field, he just hasn't been anywhere near the level, has he? So
we got to go big in that department, mate. I'm not even talking about as in height and everything else, because there's that rumour that if we get no Europe at all, he has a clause in his contract that he can leave to go to someone for however. And I think as well, Lacazette for me is definitely going, I think.
For sure. I mean, this week has been telling, I think, because what you've seen is he literally, any opportunity he gets to drop Lacazette, he takes it. And that's a sign that you're not going to keep a player.
Exactly. And obviously, we all know Eddie's not up to scratch. Even I've, come to terms with that now. I've had my cry and gone. Yeah,
he's not even making squads now, though, James, is he?
Yeah, Balogun's potentially going to go to Dortmund if Mislintat becomes their new. I was reading that the other day. He's looking at becoming director of football there, isn't he? And
he'll be their Haaland replacement, will he?
Well, they've said he's one of the first names that he wants to bring through the door. So you're looking at it and you're thinking, well, you might have all four. But a lot of people say Martinelli's not the centre forward; he's more of a left. But I'm like, well, you might have all your centre forward options leaving. Particularly, you want Lacazette to go. Aubameyang might go because of this clause. Balogun's leaving, and you want to sell Eddie as well. So I'm like, you got no centre forwards left. What, you're going to buy 3 of them? We got to sort out right back, sub left back, midfielder. I'm like, you can't.
On no money.
You're not buying 3 centre forwards as well, are you?
I know. I don't even want to go into what this European Conference League is, because I'm sure we're going to have to. So I'm sure there's time for that in the last 10 games of the Premier League season. So we'll go into it then when we're talking about it. But I don't want to go into exactly what that is. I have no idea. But just to sort of go back to the game, obviously, in the end, it really felt like, certainly midway through the second half, that there was sort of like I said at the end of the game, who settled for the 1-0 first, them or us, and I felt very much like that was the case. I felt we weren't really bothered about pushing. Of course, they're a very good team, but they really weren't trying to create too much. Right? I don't really remember Leno making tons of saves. I remember one from Gundogan second half. I don't remember a lot else, to be honest.
That one where he was through and he pelted it, didn't he? The Cancelo one, mate, that was ridiculous. I'm like, if he scored there and that was allowed to stand, I would have gone through the roof, because I'm like, any other time. Well, yeah, but they're like, oh yeah, but he didn't know it was a head injury. That's what Sky was saying. They were like, they didn't know it was. And I'm sorry. I'm like, fuck off. Like, literally, fuck off. Because Jack, like you are now, okay, it's a smaller headset, but every single they've got a VAR room with 3 people in, and they're all mic'd up. Press the little button, talk to John Moss, whatever the button is. Mate, I think there's a head injury there. You might want to stop this one. And kick in the head.
On that.
And they've got more angles than us. They've got slow speed, fast speed, medium speed, whatever you want to,
I mean, it did. I was worried because it really reminded me of like the Petr Cech one against Reading. Do you remember? And I was like, oh, please don't let it be like a skull fracture, And obviously we had the Wolves one. But what I will say, Jimenez one, sorry. But what I will say about it, so I'm really glad Holding's okay, and I think he's in the concussion protocol, so he'll miss Thursday. He probably wouldn't start anyway, but he'll miss Thursday, I think. But it was actually a terribly timed challenge by Rob Holding. And I think people forget, and if you watch it again, I don't know what he's doing. What is he doing? He's sliding for a ball he is going to never get. and then the player catches him, and I think it's accidental, to be honest, and catches him in the head. But it's a
I didn't think it was deliberate.
Challenge.
It's still a head injury.
You've got to stop the game there, yeah. Absolutely. And the ref should have blown, but Moss couldn't keep up with play at that point. He was puffing and panning.
But it just feeds into what we've all said is the inconsistency from the FA all the way through. And, I'm not saying, it's a conspiracy against Arsenal and all this. However, it's just that they've gone all about this concussions protocols and this concussion stuff, and obviously that's your field of expertise as well. And it's always not been good enough. I think you agree.
Not in football, yeah.
Yeah,
it's not.
yeah. And they're like, no, we're changing it now. We're on the ball. It's the old cliche, stay alert. No, we're alert. We're on this concussion thing. Kicks in the head, keep the game going. I'm like, you're not on the ball, are you? Because it's like I said, you've all got fourth official, lines people, like they're all mic'd up.
And nothing. Yeah, it's like our back four communicating with each other for Sterling's goal. Yeah. But you know what's weird? I didn't realise is if you get a concussion sub, it gives them an extra sub as well.
Yes.
And I'm not sure. I'm trying to work out whether that's the right thing to do or not, because that seems a bit odd to me. But fair enough. I mean, they're trying to make it better, and that's definitely a start to the process. But like you said, call that straight away. Yeah. When you've seen the hit on the head, call it. And but I don't know how he doesn't finish it after that.
Because it could have been worse.
Could have been a lot worse.
I know we're always going, worst case scenario. But I'm like, well, yeah, when it's a head injury, you've got to take worst case scenario.
No, of course you do. Yeah, you always have to take. Yeah, you have to plan for the worst at that point, and the ref's job is to allow medical team to get on the field as quickly as possible, which is stopping the game straight away. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's basically what should happen. But I guess at this point, I don't want to talk too much of the refs, but I couldn't believe the Trent one, to be honest. It's so, and everyone says, well, the Trent Alexander, of course, it's not a red card. It'd be ridiculous just because Luis's one was wrong doesn't make that one a red. And I went, yeah, but from our perspective, it does. The reason it does is because Luis's one wasn't just given as a red, it was then reviewed as a red, and then it was looked back on and appealed and reviewed as a red, and it is literally, actually, Trent's one's worse because it's for sure impeding this other player, and I know it's accidental, and in any common sense law, that is not a red card because clearly Trent Alexander did not mean to, but that ain't the rule anymore. The rule, that is not the rule. And that is where they can't suddenly become, it feels like they just suddenly kind of switch to common sense. They switch from the rule book to common sense whenever they feel like it, and it's dependent on the ref. And that's where the frustration will come in from, specifically in this instance from Arsenal fans. And even I looked at that and I thought, that's got to be a red. That's got to be a red. And they gave a yellow, and I went, yeah, now we're going to be annoyed because you're not even remotely trying to be consistent. But in the end, I don't think we showed enough. There's a stat saying, I think in the last 15 minutes of games, I think we scored with the second least amount of goals in the league. And I think that plays into what you said, James, which is if the biggest issue I had in midweek was not necessarily that we went with the same 11, because obviously he was happy with the performance and he wanted, a bit like he did at Wolves, right? Or was it at Villa? At Villa, he wanted to play the same team at Villa because they'd done so well in that first half before the sending off against Wolves. And I was like, fair play that. I mean, you play your players that have played well, of course. My issue against Benfica was the how long it took to make changes. I mean, he waited till 10 minutes from the end, I think it was, to make Martinelli and Pepe come on. And then I thought, again, his changes were a little baffling to me again. So you're telling me that he hasn't played Martinelli centrally, I don't think ever, but he decides to play Martinelli centrally in a knockout stage of a European competition where it's absolutely vital that we win over two legs. I was like, you've had all of these dud Premier League games. Villa, last 25 minutes, brings Willian on instead of him. Could have done it then because we were losing anyway. Do you know what I mean? Villa at home, 3-0 down. He was injured then, so I won't say that. But there were so many other times. I was like, that is such an odd point to do it. And if we really want to go and get a goal, we're going to take our best goal scorer off from last season and not bring on our best one from this season. I was like, that is odd to me. And we barely got Pepe or Martinelli a touch of the ball. Why do you think our substitutions, no matter who it is, it just feels like it kills any momentum that we might build. And we don't really know how to chase a result, James, which really concerns me.
It goes back to what you said earlier. This is a guy that exercises caution first and foremost over, getting a result. And I hate to keep repeating myself, but the people around him, you've got a guy there who, for the majority of his career, was a loser. He's and not just a loser, but a huge loser.
I don't know who you're talking about. Just to double check. Around Steve Round, okay.
Yeah. That's a guy that he was part of the Steve McLaren's England setup. And look at all the players they had. I know that, Sven bottled it, Hodgson bottled it, but that one, Jesus Christ, to not even get in the Euros at all with that team at that time. Ridiculous. And, Man United, okay, when he was with Moisey, it all went tits and everything else, and he was straight out the door. But do you know what I mean? They never kept him around. They didn't just go, oh, yeah, maybe we'll keep you to settle in with the new guy because you've been with these players. And everything. They were like, no, get rid of him as well. Get rid of him straight away as well. And I just think it reeks of inexperience. We know that, and I don't like to bash Arteta with that because I'm like, well, that's not his fault though. He can't help the fact that he's inexperienced. That's not his fault. But I'm like, you've got to have better people around him. And, I'm not trying to make the comparison because it's not comparable at all. But when Fergie was at United, he would always switch it and he'd bring someone in that would challenge methods or change it up. He had McLaren with him and they won the treble. He had McLaren as his assistant then. He had that Moylerstein, he had Carlos Queiroz, he had Brian Kidd when they were firstly going for it when I was a really, really little. And but I'm like, he ain't going to tell this guy to leave in the summer and get someone else. I remember when he was first rumoured to come in, he wanted Xabi Alonso, and Xabi Alonso went, no, look, I'm trying to make something of myself at Real Sociedad and everything else. So I'm like, Freddie's gone. Obviously, we knew that was going to go, and Steve Bold's doing well with the academy and everything again. And some of the academy players, when they're coming up, look how brilliant they're being. But there's just got to be more. People are like, you're expecting too much from an assistant manager, and I'm like, well, yeah, because that's the point of having them. That is their job as well. And I'm like, this guy just reeks of the fact that he's so happy he's got a payday after he was sacked from Man United. He's grateful just to be in a job again. He's like, and he's at Arsenal. We can't believe that he's still at, a big club. Because we are still a big club, regardless of what people say. I just don't think we own our size. And I just don't understand it. Like you said, with Ceballos, what's he going to do in that time?
Strange one, because he's someone that can deliver the ball into feet. And we saw against Benfica the League Cup with Odegaard, didn't we?
It's done. It's the 84th minute.
Yeah. And we weren't creating anything for a while before that, were we? Either, so we needed to change it earlier, I think. But like you said, the subs, it just seems like we lose any sort of momentum. Like we just scored against Benfica and we got a 1-1, and then about 5-10 minutes later we made subs, and I felt like it just killed everything. And it shouldn't have done. The type of player we brought on shouldn't have done it. But for some reason, the instructions, whatever it is, or the type of player, oftentimes I feel like he gets the subs wrong. I look at it and go, it's easier saying that, but a lot of the times I think it's quite basic. I was watching Arsenal versus United back in, I don't know what it was, 2007, 2008, something like that. And when we won 2-1 on Reheader last minute, right? And we were 1-0 down from a Rooney goal. They were champions that season, Man U. We were fighting for fourth. And we were 1-0 down with 20 minutes to go, and they were beating everyone as United were doing in that day and age. And we had Henry and Adebayor on, and what did we do? We brought on Van Persie, but we didn't take Henry and Adebayor off. We kept Henry and Adebayor on. We put Van Persie out on left side of him a little bit, and we still have Riziki and Fabregas on and playing their way. Carried on playing the same, but just said we're going to have more people in and around the box, and we're going to try and get people on the end of these chances here. And Arsene Wenger used to just play into that all the time, didn't he? Just very simple with his subs. Just, I'm going to put on attackers. And I'm not saying his subs have to be different to that as such, but I think he overthinks it. I just think he overthinks every sub. Sometimes it's just really obvious, just like for like. Just overthinks it.
It's like we were saying. It's the cautiousness of it, mate. He's so safe because he knows still that defensively they're frail. I think Arsene Wenger, obviously, he knew to an extent that after inheriting the back five that he did inherit, and then obviously he built on it with the free transfer of Saul and obviously Toure. But he knew I'm best off blowing teams out of the water. I'm just best off blowing teams out of the water, and then he had people that could win you games by the scruff of the neck. They took games on their own. When I was a season ticket at Highbury, I knew Thierry Henry's in a minute just going to get pissed off and go, I'm doing this by myself. And we haven't got that anymore. We haven't got a guy that goes, oh, fuck this, I'll do this on my own. We just haven't got it. And, it's just difficult. It is difficult. I mean, I know that there people were saying, oh, we're going to have tougher times before it gets good again. But you weren't expecting 11 losses, and the way it just reeks, mate. I'm sorry, it doesn't leave you with much hope, and that's all you ask for, really, is that you want to look at it and go, we got a chance of doing something, but we just wimp out and just pilter out or whatever, and it's not what you want to see. It's awful. It's absolutely awful.
Yeah, too many players that like to sort of, pass the buck and move on responsibility. And I think, for all, and I've talked up Xhaka's improvement since he's come back into the side massively. But in this game, again, there was some of the old Xhaka I was seeing again, of dropping down to the floor. And there was a point where they were on an amazing attack, and it all came from Xhaka dropping down. It was never a foul. The guy won the ball, dropping down to the floor, and suddenly there were 4-on-3, and he drops down like he's been shot. Rolling, and and as soon as he knew they were playing on, he was up and screaming to the ref. I'm like, unless you're really hurt because you did not get fouled, how are you not sprinting back there when you've dropped down? And he didn't even need to fall to the floor. It was the old.
He can't sprint back there, mate. He hasn't got it in him.
No, of course, it was the old, I'm going to lose the ball, so let me try and win a foul here and negate all responsibility if I don't win it. And we do too much of that, too much of not trying to play and trying to win the foul and all this sort of stuff, and just passing the responsibility. In the end, we lost. We thought we were going to lose. I felt, again, like I'll say, a lot of the times this season, we should be giving more in a performance and attempting to create more. And I just want to see us play better football. And I don't like it when we give a team, even of the size Man City, that much respect. And you saw in the first 10, 15 minutes just how worried and scared we were. And I think some of that goes down to the quality of players. I think a lot of that goes down to the coaching, to be honest. I still believe that. I do not believe, and I won't believe, even though I've had arguments constantly on social media about it, that this squad is 10th in the league. Just don't believe it for a second. No. Not for a second. We might not be top 4, but we should be challenging for the top 6, and there's absolutely no reason. Some people might say we will. I'm not seeing that yet. I'm not seeing enough of that. In terms of midweek, we'll get onto this game. Obviously, I think I can summarise Benfica game in, just missed opportunity, really. I felt we were the better side. I don't feel we created a ton, but I felt we created some really good golden chances, and Aubameyang missed 3 absolute sitters, or 2 sitters really, and 1 chance he should have done better with for me. Saka missed a terrific chance, but then got a goal, and I think I'm very concerned because I think. We were 1-0 up against Olympiacos last season away, and that was truly away and home. And we all know how that turned out. Now we're going to Greece for our home game, but at 1-1, and I expect them to be a lot more expansive. And I think you're seeing the results in Europe, people attack away games a lot more than they used to back in the day. And I'm worried. I didn't think Benfica looked very good at all, but I think you'll see a different side against us in the second leg, personally. But hopefully from us, you'll see a better side as well. That's the hope. I thought Odegaard was fantastic in that game. I thought he was probably our best player with Ceballos, to be honest. I thought his through balls were terrific.
Yeah, I was really impressed with Dani Ceballos in that game.
Yes, I thought he was very good, all action, Dani Ceballos. And he's looked
against
good.
Leeds. I think we were like, oh God, we're party out. Dani Ceballos has got to perform big time. And he did it both. And do you know what? The main thing that I was impressed with in the Benfica game was his defensive work. I think was it the second half, and he made that recovery tackle after Xhaka and that push forward too high. He was straight in it, bang, and it was well timed, but it was still a good, like old fashioned type of tackle. Just let him know I'm there and break that up and everything else. And then he turns around and he's like, That's you, mate. I'm meant to be doing what you're doing. I'm meant to be higher up doing the fancy stuff, and you're meant to bail me out, not the other way round. But yeah, I was really impressed. And Odegaard, like I said earlier, it's the variety. That one that he put through to Saka, where it was just how he split that. I'm like, that's velvet.
And then another one again for Aubameyang, I think, just got to the goalkeeper, but seeing passes. And I think the key with Odegaard, because like you said, he's not the same as Smith Rowe, is we've got to feed him early, got to feed him straight from midfield early, get him the ball, because he will play passes from deep, he will play passes from different angles. And someone like Aubameyang, I think, can really benefit from someone like Odegaard.
Oh yeah, he'd thrive off him. Because, a lot of the people that, and I'm not completely writing Aubameyang off, but, he relies on pinpoint service. And I'm like, that guy can give you pinpoint service, but you have to give him pinpoint service, You can't just have him stand there and he's waving and waving and waving and you go that way, or you go backwards again.
Right, and that's the thing with Aubameyang. My argument with Aubameyang over the last 3 years is I can't really criticise him as much as I sort of tend to start to hint at, because he's always been really consistent in front of goal. But my argument is, if you're not consistent in front of goal, what are you offering us in your overall play? So when I see games against Benfica, I think that is not good enough, because you're literally that is like a goalkeeper conceding 3 goals but then saying they had a great game, because you're literally there to do that, right? You're a finisher, 1 in 2 finisher, and how he misses that first one, I have no idea.
Well, so when he hit it with his left foot, I'm like, why are you using your weak foot? It was like he already had scored it in his head, and he's doing his forward flip already.
Yeah, and I'm not sure his body position was right. It looked like a bit strange.
I'm like, use your right foot. Use your right foot, and that's tucking in. You're in. And we're 1-0 up.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a frustrating night. We should have won. I thought it was a decent performance. We were definitely the better side, but we didn't win. I want to ask you about the prediction for midweek. I'm dreading it, so I'm just holding off for a second. Let's do a few fans' questions. I got one from Ash Gallagher. He always tweets us after a game. I don't always get a chance to respond, Ash, but that's not because I see so many people responding to you that I don't know where to start. So by the time I look at it, usually I'm just moaning about the game on my own on Twitter. But Ash_Gallagher, go and give him a follow, because he's a top Arsenal fan. He does give us some good questions. He says, El Neni offers nothing forward of the ball. Is there a role for El Neni in your 11 versus anyone? And he also says, Hector was poor. Would you be comfortable giving Cedric a block of games? I think we all agreed on the latter one, didn't we? In terms of giving Cedric a block of games.
I would now.
And maybe Thursday might be a possibility, but let's see, Ash. But we do agree with that one. El Neni, I mean, you praised him earlier in the season, James, but I think he did a lot better in the back 3 sort of formation, where it was a lot more simplified as well.
Yeah, I mean, we all sort of gave him a bit of praise, didn't we, and everything else, and thought that he was turning a corner and everything, and he's just regressed and gone back to the player that he always was. So maybe we got caught in the hype of thinking that he turned around. But there were times yesterday where he was deployed as like an additional centre back, and he couldn't even do that. He was struggling with that, and I think as a squad player, yes. However, in the summer, you got to find a better squad. You got to find a squad player that does what he does to a better level. For me, I think this team screams that they need physical athletes. I think the intricate, nice Barcelona-y football that was so popular years and years ago is out now, and it is literally power, speed, and everything. Okay, obviously Liverpool have fallen off the wagon completely. We've all got
interestingly as they brought in that technical player with Thiago.
We've all got their theories about why they dropped off as well. But do you know what I mean? They showed it. Juventus that was so dominant for years and years and years combined power, pace, and athleticism. All, do you know what I mean? That's the way it needs to go, and I think we need far more athletes and everything else, and just physical presences than intricate, nice footballers. I'd still keep them. Like there's people that I'd keep that are like that. If you're saying to me, James, would you buy Ceballos and would you buy Odegaard? I think if the deal was at relatively reasonable price, I would, because I think Ceballos as a squad player is worth having. I wouldn't start him because I'm all on that Basuma train, mate. that's my guy. That's the guy that I want to get.
Yeah.
But if him or a party went down, I would rather have a Danny Ceballos coming in than
El Neni or Guendouzi. Yeah, I'd rather have him than El Neni and Guendouzi, absolutely. Yeah. And
I mean, chuck this Aziz through.
Oh yeah, it's easy. Exactly, he's a technical player.
I'm already seeing. I've already given him the. He's gonna do something.
Yeah,
I think he's quality already.
Just to answer a little bit more as well on Ash, I think it is a little bit odd, Ash, that I know Ceballos hadn't played much, but I find it a little bit odd if Partey is imminently returning, that we chose to sort of rotate the central midfield again. I know it's 3 games in a week, but like I said, I just feel sometimes I feel like the rotation is a little bit overdone when the games are this thick and fast. There's other points in the season when you can, and Ceballos had a lot of in and out all season. He's not an overplayed player, so okay, in 3 days he's going to do a little bit more. Come on, let's understand who we're up against. We're up against Fernandinho and co. Put what your best players are in there. So I just find that a bit odd, Ash. Yeah. Sam _I_am_21. Sam, a great Arsenal fan. I work with Sam. She says, what do you make of all the abuse and criticism of our players by Arsenal supporters on social media to the point they've had to turn off their mentions? Obviously, we've seen some terrible abuse towards Mikel Arteta and Eddie Nketiah coming out. Obviously, Granit Xhaka in the past, and recently Willian now as well showed some terrible stuff on Instagram. Does the criticism make them better, and does it make them want to leave the club? James, what's your thoughts on that? I mean, I'll give him a little bit of my thoughts as well, but go ahead. Yeah.
Well, for me, obviously, the criticism doesn't make them better, because I would say all of us on here have never abused a player. Obviously, I make my little jokes and everything here and there, but it's never to an extent that, I'd say it's an abuse. Everyone on here has made cracks about certain players and everything else, but it's never abusive. It's not to an extent of we're like, get rid, he's got this, that, or the other, and some of the stuff about, killing their family, killing their babies, doing it. Just, I think, sadly, with what's going on in the world, you want to see the best of society. And unfortunately, the worst is just constantly flagged up. And also, a lot of these people, I think in their head, they think that when it flashes up, it's something that they can go to their mates and be like, oh, look, he's nibbed. Do you know what I mean? It's all about like, oh, he's bit at me. But I'm like, but what you're saying to justify your nib or your bite is ridiculous. And it's wrong. And it shouldn't be happening. And also, and I hate going back to it, but the Certain Fan channel started in 2012 or 2013. So they've had about a 9-year, 10-year, and people were watching that when they're about 8, 9 or 10. Well, now they're 18, 19, 20, and they're still as immature as they were when they were 9 or 10. And they've seen the screaming and hollering and shouting at the players and everything else. And they think, well, they've become celebrities off that. You know, he's a commentator. One of them's a commentator on FIFA. He's now in America for, okay, I know that they're a sports brand that people go, well, yeah, they're trash. But they're a big, do you know what I mean? They pull a big Sky Sports News whenever something happens. Bring him on as an expert. Or one of the people that are on his channel as an expert. They had one of them the other day speaking about racism, who has racially abused someone that you and Neil and everything know. Yet he's considered an expert on racism and football.
Yeah, it's just incredible.
Pardon?
We're in that era of the loudest person, doesn't matter how silly they are.
Yeah,
gets the attention,
gets the time,
and that is so. Even when I don't disagree, but even when people are posting this and we look at what this person said, for that person, like you said, that's success for them. And I agree with everything that everyone says about, you know, you should have your name should be written, your whatever, your driving license should be posted, or whatever it is to get yourself for a social media account. And if they can ban a video clip on Twitter within 10 seconds, how can they not ban someone from Twitter for disgraceful racist abuse? Sam, we completely agree with that, and I think the only sort of caveat to it, and it doesn't make it right, doesn't justify it, it's completely wrong, is I would say this exists at every club. And because we're Arsenal fans, and Arsenal has a absolutely massive social media following, or just following in general, but social media following on Twitter specifically and other, we are going to see all of it from Arsenal fans. But I know for a fact it's existing across all clubs, which is making it doesn't make it better or worse, but it's true.
You're so on the ball. Is people praise how big the following is and everything else, and that channel praises, you know, oh look, we've just reached 1 million. I'm like, but they're not Arsenal. It's other clubs laughing at you and clipping it up, going, look how stupid. And then we all get tarnished as being thickos. Like them lot. I'm sorry, and that's the only word I can use.
And then it gets thrown on the other side, which Sam mentions, which is the one part I would question is does the criticism make them better? No, it doesn't necessarily. But if you are a professional footballer, abuse never. You have to expect criticism. If you're going to go ahead and have an Instagram account or Twitter account and play like we did yesterday, and then go ahead and post something on Instagram or Twitter, I do not agree with abuse whatsoever, but you expect some criticism, and some of it, as long as it's respectful, is absolutely fine in my eyes.
And
because
but the thing is, address it as well. Like they give out these weaky sort of statements, some of the players, or they express anger and everything afterwards, and I'm like, well, no, I want to see that on the pitch. I mean, you know, earlier in the podcast, we addressed the criticism that we got last week.
Yeah.
Okay, it wasn't abuse, but, you know, I know sometimes that I might get something historically wrong and inaccurate, and when the comment comes, I'm like, oh, God, yeah, I'm so sorry. Thanks for bringing it up. You know, thanks for letting me know. And I'll try, you know, I'll do better next time, hopefully.
Yeah, and obviously we're not getting, you know, to the level of, you know, like someone Granit Xhaka mentioned his abuse, etc. But again, with Granit Xhaka, completely agree with that, and I still believe in my heart of hearts that it's the minority. But at the same time, it's disgusting. It's not right, Sam, and we think it's completely wrong. But if you're going to go ahead, and Arsenal fans, lots of real Arsenal fans are really, really upset when we lose, or just upset with the current situation at the club. If you're going to go ahead and be like, well, I'm going to post something after a game because I get 300,000 likes for it, you have to expect some criticism after that. You have to, and it's going to come your way. Now, if you have to block mentions because you can't handle criticism, that, I think, then you just shouldn't have a social media account. The abuse.
Yeah, don't put yourself out there.
Don't put yourself out there. Just don't even do it. If that affects your mindset, don't put yourself out there. Now, the abuse and everything like that, those people should be banned for life.
They're not fans, Jack. They're idiots.
They're just attention-seeking morons. Yeah,
they're just absolute idiots.
And like you said, that not that the fan channel is in charge of it and creates it, but it incites it, it justifies it. It's again, it brandishes the club with it, and it's part of the problem. And again, giving them a voice now, there's big sort of, like you said, radio shows and TV shows giving a certain sort of channel voices to other people. Then people are going to start to look to them as people to look up to and things like that, which is completely wrong. And then when you've got your own players interacting with these people, and interacting with these fan channels, you start to feel that these players are quite out of touch with who the real fans are, because there's a ton of them, as there is so many of them that look at these players and go, why would you interact with fans like that? And it's their prerogative, but they do need to be a bit aware, which in fairness Hector Bellerin is, but others aren't, about who the actual real fans are at a club.
Like I said, there's so much focus on the negative and there's nothing on the positive, mate. If people, I'll use this podcast as an example. We've got people of all different kinds of, colour, creed, everything else. We've got people that are from America that have come on here. We've had, you've had Lauren on here before previously. So, do you know what I mean? The listeners that we have are from all different corners and everything in the world. But yet we're being tarnished with this brush at the moment that we're not accepting of certain, we were the first club to have a gay supporters club and section. Do you know what I mean? Gay Gooners was the first of a Premier League club and I'm proud of the fact that we had that. We had the multi-faith prayer room installed in the Emirates. I think we were the first Premier League club to do that. So, there's this image that, Arsenal fans are racist and they're homophobic. No, they're not. We're really not. If we were, I'd come on here and say we are, because I've got no qualms of calling stuff like that out. But we're not. It's just we've just got idiots like you said, every club, every other club.
So completely agree with you, Sam, and it's disgusting. So hopefully, it's really about social media scenes and things like that, cracking down on it, because it's unbelievable what they can crack down on. But they can't crack down on something like that, and it's terrible, to be honest. But two more, and then we're going to go. Stubby-Doo 23 says, do you think Mikel showed them too much respect? Yes, I do. Stubby-Doo, that's a good name, Stubby-Doo. Xhaka and any partnership has always looked lacklustre, and Sabah and Odegaard have linked up well lately. Yeah, I agree. Sabah should have started. Had no reason for me in my head to drop him from this game. I think rotation has been overplayed, and I think when you watch us against some big teams, although the cup semi-final would be different, Liverpool away, City away, I think we gave them too.
Jack has done 11 games in a row, 90 minutes.
Yeah, so and it's not ideal.
No, I'd have hooked him out and made him come on Eddie and Ceballos.
Exactly. That's the point. And Jack, we know, is one great thing about him is he keeps himself in tip top.
Yeah. That's you've got to praise him for that. Yeah,
absolutely. He does. He keeps himself right on top. So, unfortunately, his tip top shape isn't level, but we'll get there. But our loan signing, my brother's given me one at John Gooner. There's our loan signings without an option to buy, completely pointless. And I've gone back and forth with him on this.
I saw the
if the player does well, the parent club takes him back. If he doesn't, they take him back. What is the point? And I listed a lot of loans. He went, that was an option to buy, that was an option to buy. So I found some that weren't an option to buy. for example, Quaresma to Chelsea wasn't. Tevez to United was never an option to buy because he went to City after it, for example. For me, I don't.
And Perisic a bad one then?
I think he said those were options to buy, but he's gone from loans are pointless to loans without options to buy are pointless. So he keeps changing the level. But what are your thoughts on the loan? Because we have 2 loans without option to buy in, well, 3 if you include Matty Ryan, I guess, but two specifically from Real Madrid. What are your thoughts on that? I presume he's saying that if there's not an option to buy, there's no incentive for the player to really feel like it's his home, and it's also also maybe the club doesn't want or whatever. So
it's difficult because again, it's another question that I don't think's one or the other. I see where he's coming from, and I sympathise and understand it, but at the same time as well is that, you know, they're players that maybe we're looking at. And again, Arsenal are guilty of it. It's recruitment so poor that we look short term all the time instead of maybe looking at the longer term. Again, the Willian signing, he knew that he wasn't going to get a forward player because they were prioritising other positions. And Willian fell on his lap and he thought, well, look at the numbers that he pulled for Chelsea last season. Okay, it's a gamble. And it's a gamble that's ultimately not paid off. And these loans with option to buy, without options to buy, sorry, I got that wrong. These loans are, well, maybe they'll come in and get us to that level. And then, you know, if it doesn't, you know, if we don't end up buying them, maybe we can buy someone else or some, you know what I mean? It's just a case of trying to get to where that point is. And I don't necessarily believe that Ceballos and Odegaard have been completely terrible. I think Ceballos has been very hit and miss, but I think a lot of that is where he's not been, you know, we haven't seen him for so long, and then he comes back, does well, don't see him, comes back, does well. It's like a rinse and repeat cycle.
When he's played and played regularly, I think there's been some really good points end of last season, even at points this season, certainly in the last 2 games where he played. But yeah, like you said, you want to see the consistency from him. And the Odegaard one, I mean, just because there isn't an option to buy it doesn't mean there's not a chance to buy them. There's been plenty of instances where players have been bought, right? Quadrado to Juve from Chelsea was one.
Real Madrid are definitely going to sell. They're going to want to sell players because they, you know, it's very rare that them and Barcelona don't buy Weldy at all.
No,
but they're all in crap with money. So
yeah, and I think you have to understand the current predicament as well. I mean, we're currently in a post-COVID pandemic, and I think things like loans are just going to become much, much more normal. And I think that's something you have to realise as well, John. I'm afraid. How long have you got, James? Before you got to go,
about 5 or 10 minutes.
5 minutes. All right, let's do 5 minutes on Benfica, mate. I am bricking it for this game, to be honest, mate. As soon as the final whistle ended on Thursday, I was like, I'm dreading it, to be honest. But I don't know why I feel that way. And then, well, I do, I guess. But so let's talk about. I mean, how would you set ourselves up? It's a must-win game. Because it really is. I mean, if they score, it's a must-win game. And, you know, so how would you set ourselves up and how do you see it playing out?
So I would bring Cedric in for Bellerin. I think, at the moment now, I've seen enough where I'm like, especially where we just had the question about criticism and abuse and everything else like that. I'm like, you're getting to a stage now where you're becoming like a second Mesut Ozil, like you said earlier. So maybe take you out just to save you a bit from that. I'd go back with Luiz and Gabriel. Tierney, I'd still start Tierney. If Partey comes back, then obviously I'd chuck him in. Because regardless, because he's better than all of them already.
Are you worried about the whole Tottenham situation? You know, things like that again.
Always, but it's risk and reward now. And when we signed him, I keep saying it. When we signed him, he was better than everyone there to begin with. So you know, even him at 60% is still better than El Neni at 100, Xhaka at 100, Ceballos. So even if, you know, 55, 50%, whatever you want to call it, he's still better than what we had. So yeah, he'll always start for me. But if not, No, Xhaka and Ceballos there. I would put Smith Rowe back at the 10. I wouldn't play him wide. And I would do Saka, Lacazette up top and Aubameyang on the left. I know I'm a Pepe fan and everything else, but yeah, I wouldn't start him. I'd go with that because, again, you know, for all that I don't think Lacazette's going to stay, and when he come on yesterday, he looked terrible. Absolutely, like he looked so out of shape as well. Where I thought that he's played his socks off and done really well, he just looked bloated and slow yesterday. And again, as well, it's a case of if I know I'm going, why am I going to give 100% anyway? Because it ruins my transfer. It ruins my big sign-on fee for because it's his last contract. So whoever's going to give him it are going to give him what I'd say is good money. So he might be like, why should I overexert myself and potentially, you know, F up what could be my last ever transfer and everything else. And yeah, I'd go with that. I'd go with that front three. And again, just like we keep saying, just quick, fast football, because they won't cope with that. We could, if we wanted to, we could blow them out of the water. We should have blown them out of the water last week, but Aubameyang just had he had a bad day at the office, because it wasn't a case of a bad day that he wasn't getting himself in the position and he was lazy in his body language like he was in this game. He was in the positions, but what he did let him down. So, yeah, it's...
Yeah. It's I mean, I'm concerned because I sense they'll certainly come into the game a little bit more. I expect them to probably start that Everton Suarez. Is it the Brazilian?
We
had a good effort. Yeah. And I expect them to play a few more attacking players and play with a bit more intention, which might play into our favour if we can defend against that. I pretty much agree with your lineup. I'd drop Bellerin. I've been saying that for weeks. I don't expect him to do that. Been saying that for weeks because of his footballing ability, everyone, right? Football, I'm not talking about anything else, right? Quite like him as a chap. Got a nice little Cockney accent on him, right? Definitely, seems like he's a proper Londoner, not that matters. But footballing wise, I've had concerns with him for, pre-injury even, to be honest. So there's that's okay. That criticism's okay.
If anyone can come and say that he hasn't regressed, then come and tell me, because I'd love to hear how you don't think he has.
Oh yeah, it's been quite a regression for me, and he's back fit now for long enough and things like that. And I think Cedric's done well from the left, right, and it'd be quite nice to see him on his favoured side. To be honest, it's a big game to call it in, but I think he's probably earned it. To be honest, so I think playing your best players, I think he's probably earned it. I actually agree with you. I'd play Laka or Saka as a top front three, and I'd drop Odegaard out and put Smith Rowe in. And I think I'd do the same as what you said. What's your prediction for the score, James? I am concerned.
I'm going to be brave and go 2-0.
2-0.
So I'm going to go 2-0.
2-0. Okay.
Yeah, and I'll go Lacazette as well. That's a safe option.
That's a big one, because I don't think a lot of people are going to call him starting, to be honest. So that's a big one. I'll go 2-1. I think we'll definitely concede. So I'll go 2-1, and I'll say Saka 2-1 Saka. And if I don't want to contemplate it, but just before you go, if obviously if we go through, great, into the next round, there's some really tough teams in the Europa League. To be fair, it's not like there's some proper teams in it.
Yeah.
But if you don't go through, mate, because our next podcast won't be till afterwards, and I'm sure we'll talk about it either way then. From my perspective, the season's pretty much over at that point. Just where do you stand on things at that point if it goes that way?
Well, for me, I would say that it gives serious ammunition to an already big section of the fan base that don't want him here. And I think he stays regardless.
I agree.
I think
beyond the summer, I agree.
Yeah. I think he's given the summer window. And if we're in the same place that we're in now, come November / Christmas, then the plug's got to be pulled. Because I don't see what excuse he can have if he is given another summer. But also, it's top to bottom. Every single person has got to be on it for that summer. And that's board, manager, and then obviously who we sign. And we got to be quicker. We got to be smarter. You know, like I mentioned before, Arsene Wenger had the jump on. Is it Clairefontaine or whatever it was when we first come in? The France Academy.
Oh yes, yeah, I know what you mean. The France Academy with Henri Trezeguet.
Him and Gerard Houllier, when they come in, they had the jump on that more than anybody. But then eventually people caught up and realised he had that whole market and players, French players and everything else. He had,
and then people caught up on it.
Edu, with what he got with a Martinelli, especially now in this post-Brexit world, where it's going to be easier to sign these players that are further away potentially than it is. Yeah, I'm like, you got to get some more Martinellis. You know, you got to go to Granja Comore or whatever it is, which is the Brazilian version of that Clairefontaine. Because I'm like, you've seen them all. You were the selector for 2 or so years. He was the national team selector, and that was at all levels as well. That wasn't just senior level. I think he was picking for youth and it. So I'm like, yeah, just look. There must be more Martinellis out there, and
there's got to be a right back in there somewhere, isn't there?
Yeah. I mean, you just got to be, and not all this leaving it. Okay, I'm happy that we signed Partey and everything else on deadline day. I was so happy, but we got to be quicker. Because I think
that's all without European football. If
potentially, yeah, and I mean that again. You know, for me, I would deem that failure. And I would say again, he's very lucky to have kept his job. But then I said the same with Unai. I couldn't believe that Unai was potentially going to get a new contract after the Europa debacle.
Yeah.
Because it's like we said earlier, you put all your eggs into one basket, and I was like, okay, if you've done that, you've got to secure the bag over in Baku, my friend, and we completely capitulated.
It wasn't even close.
Yeah. And like you said earlier, you only had to win one of those games.
Yeah. And I do worry about the 2-legged game under Arteta more than the 1-legged game. I worry about sort of thinking about what we already have, which was nothing really in terms of a draw, away goal. But I think I worry about, him being able to sort of, release the team and letting them play with freedom. Because you see, even in that first game, I felt we kind of settled in the last 15 minutes when I think, we really should have been pushing to get a final goal. At least one more. I know we'd missed some chances, but that's another reason we had to keep pushing. If we'd scored them, then I would have been more okay with it, but we hadn't. So game state, I'm not convinced on for a 2-legged game yet, but let's see. Let's hope we don't have to contemplate everything that we just discussed in the last 5 minutes, other than the result predictions. Let's hope we're talking about those. Thank you to everyone that's listened. Thank you to everyone that asked questions on @PurelyArsenalFP on Twitter. You can go to youtube.com/PurelyArsenal to find and subscribe to us. We had another review on iTunes, which was lovely. We've got 138 reviews on iTunes. 5 stars, of course, because I delete any of the bad ones. I can't remember who the review was from, but it was very, very nice. They said some very, very nice things. They said, I absolutely love it. It was from...
Was it Burner account? Was it?
Burner account. It was Jack 1A. It says, no, it was from Tariq. Thank you, Tariq. A Gooner Must podcast. Absolutely love it. Guys are funny. That's probably you. And informative. And seriously must listen for every Arsenal fan. We got 138 of those bad boys, which is pretty good going, I think. I've checked out the Tuesday Club. We got more than them. So, maybe we haven't. Yeah, we've got a few more than them. That's because Alan Davies talks too much about the youngsters, you see. He's still saying Willock should be starting for us. Don't do that, Alan. All right. Thank you, James. I'll let you go.
Worries. Thank you,
we'll be back after the big win on Thursday.
Yeah, Friday could be a very happy podcast.
Yeah.
Only podcast.
Yeah, before we think about we got Leicester next, but we'll stop there. We'll leave it. All right, up the Arsenal, boys. All right, take care. And girls, thank you.